My name is Stephen Lang. I'm the head of regenerative finance at a company called Planetary X, and I'll be co-hosting the session today with Olga Sitnik, who is sat here. So the session is called Nature Positive Cash Flows, and what we would like to talk through today from different perspectives is how technology can really provide a kind of unlock for resilience finance at global scale. So our speakers will talk about a variety of perspectives, how we use advanced tools such as AI, digital MRV, blockchain, please Manu, to make ecosystems measurable, traceable, and investable. And how all of that can come together to create innovative financial instruments that can really accelerate transition at speed and scale. So we've got a fantastic lineup of speakers. We have Olga Sitnik, who is the founder and CEO of AWAKEN. We have Natalia Mercado, who is the Global Government Relations Officer of Solimftech. And we have Manu Cantalas, who has been at the heart of the TFFF facility. So we've got a lot to cover. The format of the session is going to be each person is going to have 7 minutes to talk about what they're doing and deliver their presentation. I'll give a bit more of an introduction to them. Then there will be a few questions that we'll pose of each person, and then we'll open it up later for questions. So, without further ado, Olga is going to be the first presenter. AWAKEN is a climate deep tech company that is building the world's first AI-powered digital MRV system, a natural capital market that is designed to accelerate private sector investment into nature with a very specific focus initially on Peru, and they've got a really amazing story to tell. So, Olga, it's a real privilege to invite you to talk us through your presentation. You want to go here? Or?
How are you? Thanks a lot, Steve. And I would ask the team to put the presentation on the screen so we can begin. And meanwhile, I will make my intro. And I want to begin with a simple reflection. For the years, we are talking about the natural positive finances. But until today, we really don't have the economic architecture for it. The nature for today is really excluded from our financial systems, from the markets, and from the balance sheets. So that's why in AWAKEN, we have the mission to make nature investable. And to make so, we see the three fundamental shifts that we have to make. So the first, we need credible, real-time ecological data. Not the snapshots every few times a year or every year, but we need the ongoing real-time data, because without this, the natural-based finances cannot be scalable and cannot have integrity. Second, we need the mechanism that translates those ecological evidence into bankable instruments. So basically, we have to think more broadly than just the carbon credits. We have to think about hydrological resilience. We have to think about any climate outcome and put it in the credits that is influencing the climate change. And finally, we cannot talk about the resilience finance if we don't have the predictive modeling and forecasting. If we cannot model and simulate how the ecosystems will be behaving under pressure in 5, 10, 30 years, we cannot talk about the long-term environmental finances. So luckily, we do have the technologies to make it possible that we will be talking today. We do have the AI, we do have the IoT of sensors, we do have the robotics, we do have the quantum computing, we do have the blockchain. And I am very excited today to make the small introduction of our pilot we will launch in year 2026, together with the Ministry of Environment of Peru, in the 420 hectares of the Amazon rainforest in Peru. And taking the opportunity, I'm super grateful to the Ministry of Environment of Peru. I think they are extremely open for the innovations, and we are the private capital, and we are extremely surprised in the good way that the Ministry of Environment of Peru is that open, and they are helping us that much in this journey. So I will start to explain you what we will do and what kind of technologies we will use. So first of all, we are building what I just told. We are building the AI-powered digital MRV system and the digital twin. How we will do this? We will first install the network of the on-ground sensors. What are those sensors? First, we will install the eddy flux tower, which is super costly, super expensive. But only this kind of technology is giving us the chance to measure more than 1,500 parameters of the ecosystem. We can measure not just the CO2 by the biomass with the formula, but we can measure actually CO2 capture. We can measure methane. We can measure all the other gases. We can measure the soil activity. We can measure the tree health, the water system, the biodiversity signals. So this is super advanced system that we will be using for. The second, we will use the new generation of LiDAR scanning. And for this, I'm super excited because if you see the picture B, this is not actually the pictures of the forest. This is the result of the LiDAR scanning that is updated every 24 hours. So basically with this system, we will be able to enter the rainforest and to see the rainforest like you are seeing the video game. And due to the super advanced models of the LiDAR scanning, if you see the picture D, we'll be able to measure the health of every tree. And we were just talking with Natalia before the session, we'll be able to know if the tree will become sick in next 1, 2, 3 months. Also, we'll be able to measure the structure of the tree. We will be able to make the regenerative monitoring and all the mapping. So these on-ground sensors, the data we're collecting from this, we will connect with our AI-based protocols, and we are currently working on them. And this is the huge and massive work. If you want to deal with AI, you have to build your own database. So currently, we are building our own AI library of plant recognition. We are building the eDNA barcodes library. We are digitalizing the herbariums. And in this, we are working with the University of Amazônia Peruana and with the IAP, which is a scientific institution, to make it possible. And also, this is the great appreciation that we can use more than 40 labs and we can make this scientific collaboration. So what for we are doing we are collecting all this information, and here I would like to share the example that we are currently working with the Ministry of Environment of Peru. The first 5 columns, you see the 5 systems where Peruvian government is collecting the environmental data for the last 20 years. And you can see the methods how they are collecting, but the most impressive is that for today, Peruvian government is able to collect only 50 or 60 or evaluate 50 or 60 parameters of the ecosystem with the frequency about 1 to 2 times a year and with a 50% accuracy. If we will implement the whole network of sensors, we will be able to collect 1,500 parameters of the ecosystem with 90% accuracy in the real time. So this is the huge shift of how we are evaluating and seeing our natural resources. The next step that we will do, which is also quite exciting, we will connect all the on-ground data with the governmental data sets for the past 20 years, and we will connect all of this information with NVIDIA's Earth-2, which is the digital twin of the Earth and AI climate modeling, to be able to create the most precise digital twin of the ecosystem. So at the end of the year 2026, we want to have the super advanced digital twin of 420,000 hectares of the Amazon rainforest that we are building. So we will collect 1,500 parameters of the ecosystems with 90% accuracy and with 10 to 50 years forecasting and modeling. So basically today, we will be able to see what dangers the ecosystem are having in 5, 10, or 20 years due to the connection with the NVIDIA's Earth-2 and due to the AI protocols that we are building. How else it will influence Peru as the country, which is also, we'll be working with the Ministry of Environment. Here you see the SEEA accounting introduced by the United Nations, and they have the 36 parameters of how you should evaluate the value of your ecosystem. Just for the small reply, up for today, no country knows the value of the ecosystem. And if we are talking about unlocking private capital to invest in the nature, we need to know how much price is of this nature that we don't know currently. So today, for example, Peru is able to measure from 36 to evaluate only 5, 6 parameters. And with the system we are implementing, we'll be able to evaluate all 36 parameters, again with a 90% accuracy. So this will be the huge shift, and this shift will allow us to issue the new natural-based financial instruments that goes much more beyond the carbon credits. We are talking about the biodiversity credits, water credits. Also, we have the ambition to issue and to introduce the bundle credit, which will be able to evaluate the price of the forest as total. We'll be able to issue the resilience credits and bonds, fire, flood, heat, and the others. And we'll be able to issue the community-based instruments, such as, for example, social resilience units for education, health, and governance indicators. So this is not just MRV monitoring system. It opens us up the whole field of the natural-based finances. And to finish and wrap up this session, obviously, at the end of the year, we'll be also creating the national platform for Peru, where all these instruments will be traded, where all this will be digitally transparent, where it will be automated, where it will have the blockchain-based carbon register. So basically, the Peru will have its own platform to evaluate, to list, to trade, and to open the natural resources of Peru for the private investments. So thank you for this, and thank you for the opportunity to share, and I think we can discuss more in the question and answers.
Thank you, Olga. That's hugely impressive. And yeah, it's interesting that you use the word pilot for 420,000 hectares. So that's an impressive pilot.
Because no one was doing it before, you know. So if you do something the first time, it's kind of pilot.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's really impressive. If I may, I just have a couple of questions. So you're creating innovative financial instruments from ecosystem outcomes. The fundamental question that investors will have is who's going to buy them? What are you doing, and what gives you confidence that these financial instruments can be purchased, traded, kind of used really to catalyze finance to the outcome you're trying to drive?
Thank you, Steve. I understand your concern, because even here in the COP, we are talking mostly about the carbon markets, and that is true. So the other market doesn't exist. But if you look historically, you know that our financial system didn't arrive in one day. It was taken us 300 years, and it started with a simple debt paper, issued by Simply Trust. And now we have the whole complex stock market system. In our belief, we can develop the natural stock market or the natural capital market within the next 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
So we are taking this risk deliberately in AWAKEN and investing in the market of tomorrow. Because if you don't go beyond the carbon credits instruments, it's not the market. It's just some simple financial instrument we're using today, but we are just at starting point. So in AWAKEN, we made the decision that we will reinvest, for example, our 2-3 years profit from the carbon trading into the creating of the new financial instruments, into certifying them, and putting the effort to introduce them to the market. So this is the risk we are taking, but we do believe in the market of tomorrow. We do believe in the natural capital market.
Fantastic, thank you. And what you're building here is effectively AI for nature, or the AI of nature. And I think many people intuitively can see the same opportunity, but what do you see as the main obstacles to that becoming the norm in a way that it can drive the kind of transition that you envisage at real scale?
Yeah, again, thank you, Steve. I'm standing here in COP, but for real, the last 5 years, I live in the Amazon rainforest of Peru. So I see everything from the ground. And when we are talking about building the AI of nature, the first thing we have to do is building the libraries that I was shortly showing you the slide. But I want to give you the real world example, how hard and how challenging it is. For example, in the Amazon rainforest is not just one ecosystem. It's 36 ecological subsystems. To recognize those subsystems, you have to recognize the plants, the soil, the biodiversity that is in this subsystem. So to be able to do this, you have to train your AI. So how you're training your AI? For example, in the Amazon rainforest, it's about 2,500 species of trees. And to recognize one species of trees, you have to have your on-ground team. So you have to do the LiDAR scanning. You have to put the GPS coordinates. You have to send your on-ground team to this GPS coordinate to take the picture and to make all measurements of the tree. And then you have to complement them with the DNA barcoding and the library analysis confirming the species and the ecological function. So this complex process one team can do in about 1 year. They can recognize 500 plants. Obviously, you can speed it up with the finances, but this work is extremely complex and extremely time-consuming. But we will not advance nothing in AI of nature if we do not do this.
Olga, thank you.
Thank you.
You're inspiring and your work is inspiring. So thank you, Olga. We
thank
will
you
have
a lot.
time for questions later.
Thank you a lot, Steve.
Okay, so our next speaker is Manu Kantelis, who has been at the heart of development of the Tropical Finance Forever facility. And Manu, I think, is going to talk to us about the role of holistic ecosystem valuation and how that plays a role in catalyzing the massive ambition of TFFF. So thank you for joining us, Manu. It's a wonder to see you.
Thank you so much, Steve, for the invitation. And I also want to thank also the panelists that are here with me today and also here you in the audience. I really feel like since we're like a small group, we can really like make this really a conversation. And there's like so much to learn from one another and sometimes so little time to have these conversations during COP. So I actually feel really happy that we can have that and I could learn from you right now. So for those who don't know, the Tropical Forest Forever facility is a blended finance fund that is being spearheaded by the Brazilian government together with other 11 countries. And we're talking about a goal of a $125 billion fund. And so far, we have raised $5.5 billion here on this COP, and we have launched less than a week ago. So we're really, we are really excited about it. We're talking about really valuing these standing forests. And TFFF is also doing a brilliant job with indigenous peoples and local communities. And I have the privilege to lead this work within the Brazilian government. So we have coordinated a process during this year together with the Global Alliance of Territorial Communities. I don't know who knows GATC here, but they represent 24 countries and also around 30 million people and literally almost 1 billion of hectares of standing forest. And we really wanted to walk the talk here. How can indigenous peoples and local communities be at the center of the big innovations? Both when it comes to climate finance design, but also in terms of technology. And I think this is a conversation that we need to have much more. For a long time, we kind of like had this kind of like limitation on how we would engage with indigenous peoples and local communities as beneficiaries. And we can no longer do that because they are not beneficiaries. They are the real experts in nature. They are the ones that are the closest to the territories. They are the ones facing the challenges in the day-to-day with their own lives. So how can we bring them to be really our partners in the way that we design technology and the way that we design innovation finance and mechanisms like TFFF? And the way we've been doing it so far is with this global dialogue. We went to Brazzaville in the Republic of Congo with over 400 indigenous peoples and local communities with like a workshop model, kind of like opening the kitchen of TFFF and how we're designing it. And it's been like an amazing journey that has just started because we need to do a lot more granular work in the countries now. So we are providing this overarching guidelines on how the governance should work in the countries. We have a mandatory 20% allocation that needs to go to indigenous peoples and local communities from all of the forest payments of TFFF in each country. We also have designed a governance for each country of a national steering committee of indigenous peoples and local communities. But we're not talking about reinventing the wheel. It's really about strengthening the governance that already exists in certain places of the world, and in the cases of other countries that still don't have that, to actually support them in building those for the first time. And I think that something that is really important as well is like for the next phase of TFFF, that we go from idea to reality. These conversations around technology are going to be so important. So I really encourage initiatives like yours, and this is completely off the record here, it's coming from from me right now, it's like, should we have like a hackathon of like all of this like climate tech, thinking about this is how we think we can support TFFF to deliver with new technology that is at speed, that is like easy to access, that is not what you're thinking about, like having to invest a lot of money in it. Because I had amazing conversations with some entrepreneurs during this COP, saying things that perhaps we don't know on the government side of what's going on in the world. So really connecting the world of like climate techs and AI solutions to this. So there is space for TFFF for reiteration. This is something that we have inbuilt in the model because we know the technology is coming at a speed that we cannot predict what's happening tomorrow, actually, in a good way in this case. So when it comes to the monitoring of TFFF right now, the way that we're monitoring forest standing is through national satellites monitoring. We're basically encouraging countries to use their own. But I do think that we can like walk the talk and think about it like beyond that. How can we think about it in a granular level? How can we also use that technologies to support indigenous peoples and local communities knowing about an invasion somewhere? How can we then connect that to the rule of law so they can actually go there and protect their areas? So I'm kind of like going beyond the scope of what I had initially planned to speak here, but that's what I talk about in terms of like using also this opportunity for us to connect and know that you have allies also on this side of the work with TFFF. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Manu. I think the TFFF is really, really important because we go beyond the credits and we are just evaluating ecosystem as the whole. And then I have the question for you regarding the payments. Yeah. So today we have the universal payment of $4 per existing hectare of the rainforest and then the penalties. But do you think in the future, of course it will start with this, but do you think in the future it makes sense to differentiate the payments based on the ecosystem's value when the TFFF will be developing?
I will answer this question by telling a little story. Like the first time I heard about TFFF was during the COP in Dubai. And Garo at the time was explaining to the Civil Society of Brazil how TFFF would look like. And they first explained it was like $4 per hectare of standing forest. And I was one of the first people to show up and be like, what? No, we have like so much diversity. How are we going to have like $4 per hectare in all of the standing forests of the world? And he answered, if we don't do it in a simple way now at this scale, it won't happen. And that thing, like, it really had to sink in for me for a second. So I feel like we are all kind of running and walking together at the same time in different timelines, almost like a Twilight Zone kind of thing. So we have colleagues here that are going to be thinking about the granularity, about how to take into consideration soil, water, the value of communities on the ground. And that innovation needs to happen now. And we also need solutions like TFFF that is taking a different approach. For example, the $4 per hectare in a more simple way, but in a way that is actionable now at scale. And then I do believe that we're going to come together in the near future with our solutions.
Thanks a lot. And the question about technologies. So now you will base all your monitoring on the satellite data. That will be happening the next couple of years probably. Yeah. And do you see the risk if the monitoring will be not more sophisticated like the real-time data, that you can see online with all the parameters and measurements? Don't you see it like the threat for the TFFF transparency and fund as it is? Because we remember what happened to the voluntary carbon credit market, because of the lack of this real-time transparency. So can we say that if we do not in the nearest years, because I think that TFFF will have like 2-3 years credibility, and advanced trust, but then if we don't build the technology around this, maybe it can have the same problems as it was happening with the carbon credit markets.
Absolutely, and I think that the team is aware of that, and that's why throughout the concept notes we have like space for reiteration when it comes to the technology for the monitoring for the MRV, and that's why I also said in the beginning that I think we need to be closer as an ecosystem. So really like the idea of the hackathon, for example, like how can we come together and not only say, well, this could be like a challenge for TFFF, but actually come with a solution for the facility. And I think that it has a lot of room to improve, and it should go at the speed of innovation that is happening all around the world. But like I said, it is a beginning. It's the way to start. We really like our mantra is to really focus on simplicity, but we also believe that simplicity is complexity with grace. So how can we combine this complexity with the solutions that are already out there? So yeah, consider this an invitation for us to continue talking.
Thank you. And just the last question, it's not the scope of this session, but it's something like my personal pain, because I spent the last 5 years with indigenous communities also. So what real mechanism you see, how the money will actually get to the indigenous communities? And since not all of them are the owners, legal owners of their lands, because we'll still have the bureaucratic process with the land titles. So do you have some developed mechanisms, like how it will get to the communities?
Thank you for asking this question. So we have the 20% allocation for indigenous peoples and local communities within TFFF. That is quite of an innovative opportunity to actually connect the resources that will get to the ground to, for example, territorial-led funds and helping other social justice funds that are doing a great job because they're close to the territories to actually getting the resources to the ground. So that's going to be one of the key innovations of TFFF. Let's do it differently. It is not like a second thought, and we shouldn't be trying to figure out how to do it ourselves with a lot of bureaucracy involved. So we are really thinking about how can we really take this bureaucracy out of the way so the money can flow directly to territorial-led funds, regional funds, and also social justice-led funds. Was there like a second question within your question that I forgot?
The second question was like, what real mechanism? But you already answered this, like through the social funds. And I think it's great. Take away the bureaucracy. That is good. Thanks a lot, Manu, for your answers.
Thank you. Thank you, Manu, and congratulations on reaching 5.5 billion. I'm sure that will increase rapidly while we're here. Wonderful, thank you. So our next speaker is Natalia Makar, is Global Government Relations Officer at Solinftech, which is a global ag tech company developing autonomous robotics, AI and digital solutions for the field to drive smart farming, technology adoption and food security across the US, Brazil, and global markets. So Natalia, please tell us more.
All right. Thank you, Stephen, for such nice introduction, right? Well, everyone, I'm Natalia Machado. I'm part of the global strategy team at Solinftech, handling pretty much institutional and governmental relations, which connects me to COP. This is my third COP, by the way, and the first one was also in Dubai that Manu was mentioning. That COP was enlightening for me. It was my first one, so I got to know everyone and how things work, and how it made total sense for Solinftech to be here, right, at the COPs. So I'll just go through the company during the presentation so we can talk about it. You can interrupt me anytime if you need. I mean, this is pretty much a conversation, right? Well, so Solinftech is a technology company handling agriculture. So we come from Brazil, so the countryside of São Paulo state. And we are bringing the concept of living in the field, right, with robotics now. I will tell you about the company's journey, and then we will get to robotics. But just to give you a quick overview, Solinftech was born with the need of connecting machinery in the field, right? So back in 2007, in which we started things up, machines, they had the technology from their own brands. So in the field, I wouldn't see green harvester connecting to a red tractor, for example, right? Different brands, different technologies, so they wouldn't connect. And that's how Solimtech came up. So we started providing solutions that would connect those machines in the field by installing onboard computers to those machines, in which we could collect information from them on speed, engine, idle, and this kind of information. So we could pile up software solutions on traceability, logistics, and many others, right? Being even considering the plant. Today, Solimtech is turning 18, so with more than 800 people working mostly in the Americas. We have been working in 13 countries, being mostly in the Americas, right? So we have operations, of course, in Brazil, also some in Colombia, in the United States, in Guatemala, and some other countries of Latin America, processing more than 10 billion data every single day, coming from the equipment, from the machines, and also from the land, right, from the crops. We own today 95% of the market share in sugarcane in Brazil. I'm saying that I would say 3 or 4 sugarcane mills, they don't have our technology today. The other ones, they do. And they use the technology not only, of course, to reduce the use of their inputs, to reduce the use of diesel, but also even to pay bonuses to their operators, right? Since we have all the information about them, about the machines, and how productive they were, they can do that through our technology. Today, we can also tell to our clients which equipment did better throughout the season, right? So which equipment, let's say, which harvester had less maintenance, used less fuel. So once they renew their machine fleet, they can have a better, I would say, more reliable data for them to make their choice. We don't work with any equipment machinery. We do that for our customers only and exclusively, which is part of the data that we have, right? We were talking about monetizing data. This is something we don't do well. We just provide that to our clients, and they use that to renew their fleets. I'll just go on with it. So, well, I've talked a little bit about our position in the Americas. We also have an R&D center in Shenzhen in China, in which we bring some ideas that come up in there first. So we bring them to our centers in Brazil and also in America, alongside with the Purdue University in the United States, but here in Brazil with many others like, well, Unesp from Botucatu and many other universities, Exalc, you know, the agricultural universities that are out there. Those are some of our clients. So we work pretty much with some of the biggest commodity producers here in the country. So I'm talking about SLC, Amagi, and many others, and Raízen for sugarcane. And we help them do agriculture in a more sustainable way, considering that they are reducing the use of the inputs in their equipment. I'll just go on a little so we can talk about the hit of COP30 for us in here. So, well, this is Solix, which brings us to the robotics moment of the session, right? So this beauty is out there at the AgriZone, in which you can visit if you have some time. So we are showcasing Solix at the AgriZone alongside with the National Confederation of Agriculture. And Solix was Solimtech's way of not only using our machinery experience and expertise, but also having a more agronomic expertise, which is plant, right? So we can gather information from the fields and from the crops, from the plants. So Solix here, let's see if the video is gonna, it's not. Oh, how do I go back? Here. DJ, hit it. All right, you're gonna see Solix on the ground. So this is how it goes. We've got 4 solar panels on the top, so we don't use any fuel for that to run. Cameras underneath, so we can do what we call scouting, which is collect plant-by-plant data on health, pests, or plant height, plant stand, and many other types of data. We also do targeted application of herbicides for now, but the development team is working right now on other types of inputs so we can apply. The cameras that are on the top, they are the ones responsible for the targeted application. So each one of them controls the nozzles independently. So once Solix is on the ground, it sees weeds and it applies. It works 24/7. So during the night, it also hunts, it attracts pests with the UV lights. The UV light waves, they are supposed to attract only the bad insects, the ones that jeopardize the crops, and they go straight to the bug zapper that we have in the middle. We call that the hunter. So that's what it does. Considering that Solix lives in the field 24/7, it doesn't have to go back to the shed by the end of the day. It's easy for it to understand exactly what's going on in there. So usually farmers, they don't have reliability of what's going on other than the calendar, right, of the applications, because they are not there 24/7. Agronomers do their best on the sampling that they bring to the farmer, but once you have an equipment there 24/7 collecting data, applying inputs and reducing those inputs, that targeted application you saw there reduces up to 90% the use of herbicides in the field. And that brings a lot of other things in the package. This means 10% more productivity in the field. Less stressed plant will produce more, such as we do, right, with less stress. So as you can see here, it's easy to understand. This was a plot planted and treated traditionally, currently the way it is today with the sprayers that we have today, and this one with Solix. So you see a more robust plant having more beans in it and much more roots as well. Less stressed plant producing more. This is what it means. And in terms of soil, it also means 40% more beneficial microorganisms in the soil, considering you're not using the same amount of herbicides that you were using before, considering the targeted application. And it also means 12% more molecules that would degrade the chemical molecules. So microorganisms that would degrade the chemical molecules, considering that you have microorganisms in the soil that are alive, that were not jeopardized by the chemical application, considering we reduced it. So lighter equipment, so it even turns into less soil compaction, so it can remain carbon sequestration in those fields. So there are many aspects that with a hardware that is on the ground, collecting data 24/7, putting that in a software, put that in Alice, by the way, that I didn't mention, it's the name of our AI. Alice is the one making things happen. So treating that data that our farmers provide, so we can give suggestions to those farmers of what's the better way of treating your crop, considering that you have a sentinel over there 24/7. So that's what we have been doing. We have more than 150 units running so far. We are studying so we can scale up Solix. There is a spoiler alert here from the R&D team that brings up a new model, which is a brother for Solix, that will be able to apply two different molecules, so different two rows of application in the same robot, right? So you can combine molecules and apply to different types of weeds at the same time. So there is a lot to see, and I know that we have the questions to discuss, so I won't talk too much. And I'm sweating. Oh gosh. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalia. Wow. We wanted precisely to have this session with you because, 18 years of experience, 13 millions of hectares you monitor in real time. So basically you did in agro what we just want to do for the forest conservation and restoration. That's why I was so excited to see the real technologies you are using, the Alice, the Solix, right? The name of the robot, right. So I will ask you a couple of the questions. Basically, I will ask you and challenge you to think how we can use all of this experience for forest conservation and restoration. So the first question I would ask you about the robotics. So you're identifying the state of the health, if to put it in the simple word, of the plants, and you're identifying what kind of treatment it needs, no, of kind of crops it needs. So the question is how we can apply it to the forest restoration. What are your thoughts?
Well, I would say information is key, right? So as we're doing in agriculture, once you have sensors installed and you actually see what's going on in there, you can start standardizing things up, right? I'll tell you a story of how the company came up. In 2007, in the sugarcane harvesting line in Brazil, the harvesters, they were manual. So the operator would have to kind of calculate the cut of the sugarcane. So it would have a lever and try to get it right. If you didn't get it right, or too much on the top, for example, you would lose a product to go to the industry. And if you would cut too low, you would hurt the plant for the next season. So the first solution was called a soil copier, which we're not very good with names, I must say. Solix was a miracle. And this soil copier would just actually copy the soil level or the ground level, so the harvester would do the perfect cut, no matter the ground level. It was a sensor that solved a huge problem in both ways. You know, if you cut too high, not enough product. If you cut too low, you hurt the plant. That's problem either way. So once you have eyes on those fields or on those forests, you start standardizing things up to create the perfect model, as you were doing on AWAKEN, which is amazing. So you can bring new solutions to those modules. You know, so again, I repeat, data and information is key, because once you have it, you can treat it, you can standardize it, you can create models, you can go them through algorithms to create new solutions.
You know what I was thinking when I saw your robot, Solix? I was thinking how to apply it for the restoration of the forest, because for now, yes, we can use the drones to spread the seeds, try to grow the forest. But the truth is that 90% is wasted, because we do not know what kind of plants they are, what kind of seeds there are, so we're kind of guessing. So I was imagining if we have this robot Solix that you have, but in drone, you know, not on the on ground, but in the drone version, so we could really plant precisely the seeds that would grow there, so the restoration of the forest will be 90% more faster and 90% more cheaper, and that made me very excited. Okay, so the next question is, I know that in Solentflex you solved one big problem. You're integrating the data from satellite on-ground data in one software system. So also, I would want to ask you your experience about this and how we can apply it for the forest conservation, because as you told, data is everything, and to being able to apply this data is also everything.
Yeah, other than having this data, we need a whole, I would say, system, right? Because even in agriculture, for us to be able to link all this information, we have a whole ecosystem around. So I have Solix on the ground collecting plant data. I have my onboard computers on the equipment, on the machines, so I can control the whole fleet. I have weather stations out there, so I know exactly when to apply. If there's too much wind or if it's going to rain, I cannot have an application on the field. Or I have satellite imagery showing me, yields and productivity for the season, and try to have a predictability of everything. So once you have the whole ecosystem also embedded, not only in the farm, on the fields, but also in the forests, that would be paramount, so we can close the whole ecosystem to put this understanding all together. So it's not only a matter of collecting that data, but also connecting it to everything else that is out there. An example is that, and for different regions, right? Because we were talking before, what you do at the Amazon rainforest will not be the same thing even in Brazil at the Atlantic forest, right? The same thing as when we work with the different regions for crops. In the Brazilian Midwest, you have different types of weeds, as sourgrass or horseweed. They are different, and they require different amount of product and a different concentration of product. And if you go to the American Midwest, you have water hemp and you have morning glory, which are different types of weeds that also require different types of products and the mixture. So the same thing, it would be once you have those eyes on the ground, if you have them on the crops, you need to have them on the specific ecosystem that you want to work with.
Great. And the last question, Natalia, we were talking about this before the session. So all our companies, Planetary X, AWAKEN, Solinflex, we are collecting the huge amount of data, right? You're collecting the data from 13 million hectares. We'll be collecting the data from always 500,000 hectares. Planetary X is collecting the data from the project they're working on. So the thing is, now we just collect this data in our kind of data modes. But what are the perspectives in the future of how we can use this data to actually change the markets or improve the systems? So what is your perspective on this?
That's something we are working hard on, because Solinflex's DNA was always to provide solutions to the farmers the best way possible, right? And then we never really looked at that perspective of, okay, this could be monetized some other way than selling it to my client. And that's interesting, because when you collect this amount of data, you have companies looking at it and thinking what you were not thinking before. So with Solix, for example, we have some companies, seeds manufacturers or laboratories that got interested, or even input companies that got interested. Instead of seeing Solix as a threat, considering the input reduction, they considered it as an opportunity of having it as a living lab in their own experimental farms. And that was very interesting, because it's a new market opening up. So I believe that once you have such amount of data as Solinflex, as AWAKEN, right, as Planetary Accents, as everyone here, you bring reliability to the farmer to use that data, even to get credit for themselves. As an example, so this is the third season Solix is commercially running. And now we are starting kind of a timeline of yields and productivity that Solix has been following up in those farms. So once we have this, I would say, material closed up, we can start, or the farmer can start using it to go to the banks and say, okay, this is how my farm usually operates. This is the data I have, and it's been like that for the last 4 years. What can we do with it? Or even to insurance companies to start creating new models of insurance for different equipments, or even for those farms. So I would say that there is a lot out there that, considering that we are gathering all this information together, we are going to get to a point in which this information is going to be so valuable. It already is, but this is going to get bigger.
Thanks a lot, Natalia, and let's give us applauses for this part of the session. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Natalia. Okay, so I just wanted to say a few words on Planetary X and what we're doing, and then we'll open it up for questions. I think what's really exciting about the 3 presentations that we've had so far, what really comes through is the scale of these projects in terms of the data, the technology, the financing, the land coverage potential, both the scale and the scalability, and the speed with which we can accelerate these solutions. And when you hear it all together, I don't know about you, but it gives me immense hope that actually we can drive solutions at scale and speed. And even just in the conversation, there are clear collaboration opportunities that we need to seize. I want to come back to the point on hackathons, by the way, Manu. So Planetary X is focused on how do we monetize data. Data around ecosystem outcomes. How do we codify and put a value on resilience in specific ecosystems that those that benefit from that resilience can provide finance for, and how can that finance be distributed rapidly to the people that need that finance and that are working on all of our behalves to drive that resilience. I was on a panel yesterday with the day before, with Global Alliance of Territorial Communities, with Asian Farmers Association, with East Africa Farmers Association, representing tens of millions. Those three organizations represent tens of millions of people. And their question was, why doesn't the current financing system work for them? And how could it be improved? So I sort of said, look, when you look at the existing financing system, and I've been working in the sort of blended finance space for a while, the current process is something along the following lines. You have to find an institutional anchor funder, one of the climate finance institutions. It's difficult. It takes a lot of time. You then have to secure co-financing from multiple other parties. Difficult, takes time. You have to find bankable projects. Not straightforward, difficult. You've got to figure out the measurement. Can be difficult, can be costly. You've got to figure out distribution. You've got to figure out participation. The current financing system generally is bureaucratic, it's complex, it's slow, but it takes years before finance can be unlocked, and then oftentimes we realize that there hasn't been enough participation, and therefore these things aren't really fit for purpose. Most organizations, particularly the ones that were on the panel with me the other day, don't have the time, they don't have the resources, and they certainly don't have the patience to go through those processes. So what needs to change? I think what we've seen today is that technology is central to the answer. Technology can provide high precision, granular impact data at relatively low cost. So it solves the costly MRV issue. It can provide a solution to traceability through blockchain. We can create 100% traceable impact at relatively low cost, which addresses the needs of large corporates. Again, through blockchain, we can create participatory governance mechanisms for things like TFFF, so that we make sure that as we scale, we deliver on the promise of just transition. We can determine and predict what precise interventions need to be through this kind of technology. So we can deliver, and we can also deliver financing to individuals at speed. So technology, I think, is the answer to all of the kind of barriers, really, of the current financing system. What we're doing at Planetary X is we create what we call resilience assets that are compound sort of sets of indicators that apply to forest preservation, to regenerative agricultural context, to mangroves, to peatlands, to wetlands. And we're creating a family of resilience assets that those who benefit from that resilience can buy. So if I'm a global corporate sourcing cocoa, I know that I need positive action on the ground in Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire. I need to know, and I will pay for, demonstrable impact on the ground in those regions. So we're building the system and the financial architecture to enable that and put a value on that that reflects the value to those end corporates. I wanted to come back to hackathon because the other thing that we were talking about on the panel was what there's a real need for as this technology advances and we create solutions is to make sure that those solutions are pretty much designed by smallholder farmers, by indigenous communities. So my request on the hackathon, which I would love to make happen, is to let's make sure that the design specification meets the needs of those communities and then have people respond to that rather than the other way around, and we have kind of top-down solutions. So I think when you put all of these things together, I hope it gives you, certainly gives me, an immense amount of hope that we do have the solutions actually that could scale quickly. The money is there, the technology can enable that money to flow. We can create new innovative financial instruments that will become the norm within a few years. One of the things that we are particularly focused on at the moment is how to drive change through landscapes that can codify regenerative agricultural assets, wetlands assets, forest assets, so that we can start driving sustainable development and economic progress through the prism of landscapes, which really needs to be the ultimate unit of resilience. We're a young company. We're a relatively small company with a big ambition. So, in some ways, a kind of precocious startup. But then, when you're a technology company, these things can scale quite quickly, and we're getting a lot of interest from the larger players that can't really solve these problems, you will have seen, without technology. So I just wanted to leave it there and share a few reflections on what we're doing and how it complements what you're doing.
Thank you, Steve. Let's give also applauses for this presentation. And I have the question, Steve. So we are both, and you're in Planetary X, are issuing the new financial instruments of nature. You're issuing the biodiversity resilience assets. And obviously, as you were saying, when you go to the bank, they would ask you, Steve, but who will buy it? Who will buy them? So how you deal with the skepticism? Because I know how hard it is to introduce the new natural-based instruments to the market.
Yeah, I think there's. I think it's important to talk about markets here. So the market for biodiversity credits or assets is nascent. It's small. It's kind of, to some degree, it's not matured yet. So you could look at this from a market perspective and kind of say, well, there isn't really demand for those assets now. I have a slightly different take on that, in that the technology enables you to pinpoint who those resilience outcomes are valuable for. And when you can do the modeling of who it's valuable for and how it's valuable for them, you can create transaction flows and financing without markets being there. It's a different kind of value flow that you can monetize. So in the example of cocoa in West Africa, there are a very particular group of companies that are looking for solutions that drive resilience in those specific contexts. And if you can draw those linkages, then you have a buyer for the assets without there being a need for voluntary markets.
Thanks a lot, and I will catch from here. So we are very centered on the carbon market. And when we had the chat with you, preparing this session, I was so happy knowing that you also support the multi-asset ecosystem model, so to go a little bit beyond the carbon credits. So can you please share your opinion on this, and can you share exactly if you believe it will be developed in the future?
Yeah, so resilience doesn't work as a single metric. I think there's a danger that we try to reduce resilience to single metrics. I think we tried that with carbon. It kind of doesn't really work. There's a danger that we do that with just biodiversity. That doesn't really work. We need to be thinking about system properties that are functions of multiple indicators, and we need to find a way to represent the value of those compound indicators. So if I think about the example of regenerative agriculture, what we're doing is we are looking at the various emerging outcome-based frameworks around water, soil health, biodiversity, yield, and we are sort of saying, well, if that's what corporates in particular are trying to drive in terms of their regenerative agriculture targets, then they need assets that demonstrate that that basket of outcomes is being delivered. So you need multiple indicators. All of that can be measured with on-ground sensors, with LiDAR, with remote sensing, with satellites. So it's really a dialogue then about what does the asset need to represent, which kinds of indicators, how do you put together, because it's the combination of them that drives resilience, not one specific metric.
Thanks a lot. I know that we have to wrap the session, so maybe 30 seconds, Steve, for you to have the closing of this amazing session.
Yeah, well,
that I will ask
how do I sum it up in 30 seconds?
It's the challenge.
I think I'd go back to my point. I hope this microphone works better than that one. I hope that what has become clear in this session is that whether you look at this from a financing angle, from a technology angle, from a data angle, from an asset monetization angle, there are people working on this with real ambition at real scale, and it's creating abundant opportunity for collaboration. So I actually leave this session, I hope you do, with immense hope. I think we are very much on the journey towards scalable solutions, and I hope that's come across. So I just want to say thank you for the work you're doing and for making such a powerful contribution today. Thank you.